Our presentation today focuses on the beverages industry with an in-depth analysis of the CSR initiatives within the global coffee industry, using two UN Global Compact members as examples, which are Starbucks and Dean's Beans Organic Coffee.
To begin, let's examine where Starbucks fit in the sector. Starbucks' mission statement is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. They are currently the largest coffee company in the world, with over 30,000 retail locations and 349,000 employees. In 2020, their market share rose to 26.48%. Starbucks emphasizes their commitment to sourcing coffee through ethical methods and supply chains and aims to create opportunities through employment, education, and human interaction. Starbucks tries to strengthen the communities by presenting their coffee shops as a place for public conversation and civic engagement. The second company we chose was Dean's Beans. Their mission statement is to use specialty coffee as a vehicle for positive change. It is locally run in Massachusetts, USA. Dean, the founder, aimed to prove that a for-profit business could enact social good and make meaningful changes by engaging in ethical practices. Dean's Beans develop long-term relationships with suppliers and supports farming that doesn't cause deforestation or harm wildlife. Dean's Beans provides their suppliers with extra income by allowing them to ship their coffee straight to the company rather than using exporters or millers. Their coffee roasting facility is solar powered, and their people-catered development process aims to provide clean water, income generation, and healthcare in communities where the coffee is sourced. Oversupply in the global coffee markets has decreased prices and cheap production is common. Coffee is therefore sourced largely from the bean belt regions with poor working conditions and low wages. Many coffee farmers in these regions are some of the poorest among the population. Volatile coffee prices impacts the affordability of education, housing, and healthcare for farmers. Farmers who are geographically isolated must often pay high prices for basic tools and transporting harvested coffee. Exploitative coffee production has resulted in large amounts of deforestation. Regarding the waste issue, single-use coffee cups have led to enormous quantities of waste, as well as single-use coffee capsules made of metal or plastic. While Starbucks may have ethical supply chains, waste is a significant problem for them. Their stores produce an enormous amount of packaging waste, such as cardboard boxes, cartons, milk jugs, and bottles of syrup. The firm has been criticized in the past for wasting an estimated 23.4 million litres of water per day. Until 2020, Starbucks cups were not recyclable or compostable due to difficulties reaching the same level of quality. On the other hand, Dean's Beans appear to be consistent with their mission and no sustainability issues stand out. Now I'll pass you over to Porrick, who's going to discuss the Sustainable Development Goals.
In 2015, the United Nations launched 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are a broad set of global, economic, social, and environmental priorities that aim to be achieved by 2030. We believe that responsible consumption and production, reduced inequalities, and sustainable cities and communities are the three most important goals for our companies. By 2030, Starbucks will aim to reduce carbon emissions and reduce waste sent to landfills from stores and manufacturing by 50%. They also want to conserve or replenish 50% of the water currently being used in their production. Starbucks plan on expanding plant-based and environmentally friendly menu options. The firm has a strong desire to shift towards a circular economy. Dean's Beans carry out initiatives with respect and care for the environment. The firm has been 100% certified organic since day one. They work in countries assisting farmers to obtain and maintain organic certification, which assists in protecting and enhancing soil, water, and critical migratory bird habitat. This highlights their commitment to responsible production. Starbucks proactively works with different groups to reduce inequalities within society. One of those initiatives was seen when Starbucks undertook anti-bias training to reduce inequalities in the workforce. Following an incident in a Philadelphia Starbucks store that led to the arrest of two African American men, Starbucks closed every store in the United States on May 29, 2018. So Starbucks partners could come together for a conversation and learning session on racial bias. Dean's Beans have participated in different initiatives aiming to reduce inequalities, like the well-known Fair Trade Certified label. They believe the fair trade labeling system is just one tool in the toolbox for creating trade justice. Consequently, the firm has built on their fair trade label by working closely with farm cooperatives to develop the small producer symbol, the first farmer-owned, operated fair trade label. More information on efforts made by reducing inequalities by the firm are highlighted in the supplementary report. Starbucks have begun developing community stores in neighborhoods across the US. These stores are dedicated to support local economic development. This is achieved through local hiring, partnerships with local non-profits, and a unique in-store training space for local programs. The store creates pathways for those facing barriers to opportunity. People-centered development is an approach to international development that focuses on the real needs of local communities for their necessities. The goal aims to make cities and communities more resilient and sustainable. Dean's Beans only do projects when asked and invited in by the community, not by the government or some large foreign aid agency. When they visit, they listen and talk to farmers, women's groups, and others about what is holding the community back from reaching its self-identified development goals. Then priorities are identified. I'll now invite Emer to speak on CSR reporting and communication.
I will now briefly look at the CSR reporting strategies of both Starbucks and Dean's Beans. So CSR reporting practices are those which primarily inform external stakeholders of the ESG practices happening within the organisation. So reporting also coincides with Article 12.6 of the UN's SDGs, which encourages companies to adopt sustainable practices and reporting. So these practices are often not accounted for in financial performance metrics, and it generally requires a separate reporting model. So this reporting model can differ between firms, or does usually differ, as there's no set standard in the industry. Therefore, the method, frequency, and consistency of CSR reporting content varies between firms. So Starbucks and Dean's Beans, as we can see here, their reporting methods and content are not overly different from one another, yet the impact due to differences in consistency and apparent reliability and credibility set the two coffee companies apart from each other. So one can evaluate CSR reporting communication based on credibility and traction on quite a basic level, yet our supplementary report highlights Spence's signalling theory as a sufficient metric within the coffee beverage industry. So CSR is seen as a signalling mechanism in which the signalling of social responsiveness to stakeholders activates the stakeholders' goodwill and creates a good reputation for the company. And the CSR report is a substantive signalling action to show that the company fulfills its social responsibilities. So a more in-depth analysis of both Starbucks and Dean's Beans CSR reporting strategies as evaluated by signalling theory will be provided in the extra material report. Although the main highlights are that although Starbucks' CSR reports were disseminated widely and articulated well, their credibility can be found lacking in comparison to Dean's Beans. So Dean's Beans reporting is more personal, as the founder of the company wrote a memoir which is available for customers and other stakeholders to read and vicariously experience the thrill of opening a fair trade coffee company. This emphasises the story's credibility. So Dean's Beans also makes excellent use of social media channels to promote their CSR focus mindset, most notably their LinkedIn page, which holds a strong CSR focus. So Dean's Beans rates very high in terms of this signalling theory, as their reporting and communication actions, most notably the founder, the Dean Syken's book, is accessible and easy to understand. It's also quite difficult for any competitor, not just weak competitors, to copy, as the story is specific to Dean's Beans.
Now we're going to look at the company's performance based on the Mirvis and Guggen's framework, ranking each of them based on the 7 different dimensions. Both companies rank at the highest stage of corporate citizenship, as both are keenly aware of their role in society and represent themselves as leaders in the application of social contract principles. Starbucks have shown their interests do not solely lie with financial results, as the actions listed are based on community involvement, as well as initiatives supporting the LGBT community and mental health. Dean's Beans' approach is based on societal values, and their aims are clear through their key principles that involve the importance of basic human rights, sustainable community development, and respect and care for the environment. Both companies again rank at the highest stage of our next dimension, which is strategic intent. Starbucks' Supplier Diversity and Inclusion Programme partners their business interests with minority business owners. Their products are based on sustainability rather than convenience, and their employees are given development opportunities that are all part of their business strategy. Dean's Beans are passionate about the fact that their ingredients and products are grown and sourced for the highest quality, using their high-quality coffee specialty as a vehicle for progressive change throughout global coffee lands. We rank Starbucks at the integrated stage of leadership. Kevin Johnson is very informed on citizenship issues, given his former advisory role for Catalyst and through his public actions dealing with issues. They are ranked at stage 4 based on the fact that there is still room for an increase in proactive leadership rather than reactive. Dean's Beans again ranks at the transforming stage. Dean Syken, their founder, definitely practiced what he preaches through his role as an environmental and Indigenous rights lawyer, his role in founding Coffee Kids, and in writing his book based on social justice. Starbucks rank at the innovative stage of structure. Their matrix organizational structure means that citizenship issues will intersect among various components of the business, although it is unclear if it is fully integrated into hierarchical management positions. Dean's Beans ranks at the transforming stage once more, with its key principles embedded in its mainstream business activity. We have Starbucks ranked at the innovative stage for issues management. They have dealt with current issues by organising certain events and training for staff. The reason for their ranking at innovative is these programs are more reactive rather than proactive. Dean's Beans ranks at the transforming stage for issues management. Their approach tackles all current issues. One could even say that Dean's Beans defines the issues in the coffee industry. Both companies are ranked at the transforming level for stakeholder relationships. Stakeholder relationships are key for both companies, with employees and suppliers receiving various training and benefits. Both are partnered with different NGOs, allowing them to be described as multi-organisations that are leading the way in the industry in terms of stakeholder engagement. Transparency is the final dimension of the framework, and again, both companies rank highly at the transforming stage. Both companies issue global social impact reports, while both companies also address citizenship issues thoroughly on their websites. In addition to this, Dean's Beans is a certified B Corporation, meaning they meet the highest standards of public transparency. Now Matthew will analyse the two companies' initial and subsequent response to the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak.
So what we're going to have a look at here now is the COVID-19 response and how the responses of the organisations differ based on the sizes of the organisations. First, we're going to have a look at is the initial response and then how the response matures as the pandemic matures. So now moving on to the initial response with Starbucks first, they showed a very proactive approach towards the safety of their staff and customers as they closed all their stores for sit-in dining before it was legally required in the US. And on March 15th, which was the beginning of the pandemic, they also guaranteed all their staff's wages for the next 30 days. And this was regardless of whether they actually came into work or not. And it was actually later extended until the 3rd of May. Mental health, sick pay and childcare supports were also all upgraded. And then with Dean's Beans, it was more about keeping the show on the road. So maybe this was informing their customers of delays with deliveries and setting up and implementing a click and collect system. And they also shifted all their production staff to split shifts. So this ensured that there was only half the staff working at any given time, and it was to ensure adequate safety and optimal safety for all their staff. And now on to the continuing response. When it became clear that the pandemic is going to be here for a while, CEO of Starbucks Kevin Johnson came out and said that any customer who identifies themselves as a frontline responder will receive their coffee free of charge for the duration of the pandemic. And the Starbucks Foundation also donated $500,000 to ensure that adequate PPE could be sourced for all frontline responders, as it wasn't currently available at that time. There was also a $3 million donation to relief efforts worldwide. This was broken up into $1 million for the UN Foundation, $1 million for Give to Asia, and $1 million to US and Canada local community responses. The Starbucks Global Partner Relief Programme was also set up, and this involved a further $10 million donation to relief efforts worldwide. And Starbucks also showed an adaptability to the new normal, as the mobile app was up and running. The grab and go system where you could order your coffee and pay without actually going into the shop and collecting it was in place. Drive-thru was set up in locations where it was possible, and Uber Eats was also trialled for delivery of coffee in various locations. And then moving on to Dean's Beans, the tin ties that were used to seal the coffee bags were actually recycled and donated to locals who used them to craft face masks. The 1,000 Pounds of Light campaign was also launched, and this involved a pound of coffee being donated to 1,000 customers who were struggling as a direct consequence of COVID-19, and the aim was just to lighten up their day maybe a small bit. And there was also a 5,000 donation to the Springfield Public School, and this would ensure that nutritious meals could be sourced for all students, as they weren't currently available because their schools were closed as a result of COVID-19. And now I'm just going to hand you back to Emer just to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
To conclude this presentation, we'll briefly discuss the possible actions both Starbucks and Dean's Beans could take in the future to improve their overall CSR focus, both in line with the UN's SDGs and also to mitigate the negative effects of the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic as it matures even further, while also highlighting both the weaknesses and opportunities both firms present. So previously mentioned was Starbucks' waste issue. However, this weakness could actually be used as a future opportunity for the firm. So Starbucks has pledged to reduce this waste by 50% in the next 10 years. So the introduction of eco-friendly cups in all retail locations worldwide would be a major step in the right direction. Supply chain accountability should also be a prime focus for Starbucks in the coming years through affording farmers the opportunity to ship their coffee directly to Starbucks, rather than making use of the outside millers and exporters. So Dean's Beans already has this system in place, and it benefits the coffee farmers by providing them with extra income. We found Dean's Beans not to have any major issues and have been true to their mission statement. So this presents Dean's Beans with an opportunity to become a market leader and consequently forcing competitors to strive for this level of sustainability within their own firms. So Dean's Beans holds the opportunity to force rivals to become more accountable and transparent as they attempt to raise the standards of the coffee industry as a whole. So what can the coffee industry do in the future? Collaboration with manufacturers of protective equipment, as Dean's Beans have begun to do, should continue. This not only aids both frontline workers and the general public by reusing tin ties to manufacture masks and increase the supply of this protective equipment, It also promotes the reuse of material used in coffee packaging. So this action supports the UN's 12th SDG, which highlights responsible consumption and production. And although it may seem like a small action, the coffee industry at large could help further this goal while also doing their part to protect global health outcomes far into the future. Thank you for interacting with our presentation on the beverages industry, focusing most notably on the global coffee industry. We look forward to your comments.